Formula 1 is hard. And it will be especially so in 2025, since it's the final year of the current regulations with a ridiculously competitive grid, I hope. So today, I will list out each of the 20 drivers' biggest challenge during this season, starting with the reigning champion, Max Verstappen. Typically, it would be difficult to think of a challenge this guy can't overcome. However, in 2025, Red Bull made it easy since the RB21 is not looking good, and Horner doesn't seem to be interested in overspending to fix all the issues that were wrong with last year's tractor. I mean, for all we know, the RB21 and RB20 are pretty much identical. To add insult to injury, he also has 8 penalty points with 12 needed to trigger a race ban, so be prepared for MBS to ban Team Radio entirely after the insane crash out that's about to take place when Max drives that thing.
You're fucking
Now this doesn't mean that it's over for him or whatever, like I've seen people genuinely write him off because Hamilton moved to Ferrari, and that's what everyone is talking about. But let me remind you that this is the man that went from 17th to 1st, won the championship in the 3rd slowest car, and that the last time he finished a race outside the point was 2016. Lewis Hamilton. This man has been the center of attention these past few months in and outside F1 ever since he signed with Ferrari. So his biggest challenge has easily got to be the sheer amount of pressure on his shoulders from both his supporters that have sky-high expectations for him and his haters that are predicting his downfall and say that he's washed. I mean, take Bernie Eccleston for example. Dude looks like this, but still has enough hate in his body to say Lewis won't last 2 years at Ferrari. So needless to say, any mistake Hamilton makes will be overblown like crazy. In fact, it's already happening, with people talking about how it's over for him because he crashed the SF23 during a preseason testing session in Barcelona. Now you might be asking why I didn't say winning the championship is his challenge, but that question is exactly the pressure I was talking about. Speaking of Ferrari, we have Charles Leclerc, whose biggest struggle will probably be McLaren, that are the favorites to win the title next season with their rocket ship. Now I bet you expected me to say Ferrari are his challenge, and you'd have a great reason to, but they've actually been quietly behaving well. In comparison with other seasons anyway. Heck, I'll even go as far as to say that I'd be surprised if we witnessed the classic Ferrari shenanigans this season. This will definitely not age like milk, by the way. Lando Norris. Coming off the back of last year, it's safe to say that his biggest op is, himself. I know, it's low-hanging fruit to clown on Lando for having terrible race starts and choking or whatever, but that's not actually what I'm referring to. I'm rather talking about the confidence issue he seems to suffer from. Like, dude looks like me after a long-ass shift after every race. Which is to say borderline considering paying his creator a visit. Should he have learned from last year and gains confidence in himself, he actually has a very good chance of actually winning a title in my opinion, simply because McLaren have a strong pace advantage coupled with how little that car seems to be affected by track conditions, unlike Ferrari and Red Bull. Next up is George Russell. Heads up, I'm not gonna make another 9/11 joke, I promise. George is now leading Mercedes after Hamilton finally got ejected from the throne. Or at least that's what Toto tells himself every night so he can fall asleep. But anyways, Georgia's biggest challenge in 2025 is Max Verstappen. And will this actually happen? Pff, definitely not. Do I fantasize about this every day and pretend like it will happen even though it definitely won't? Absolutely. Of course, the reason I want them to fight, in case you somehow missed it, is basically this. Max got an unprecedented one-place grid penalty in Qatar for blocking George, and I'm using the term blocking loosely here, while he was on an outlap during qualifying. Normally this would fly with no penalty, but we all know George Russell and flying isn't the greatest combination. Sorry, I forgot I promised. But anyways, Max got angry at him and said, Russell is a two-faced D-head, and Russell said, no, Max is a bully. It is personal. Nico Hülkenberg. Yeah, his only opponent are blue flags, let's be for real. I don't know how or why this man was convinced signing with a broke sinking ship whose management is more confusing than Alpine's was a good idea, but man does it suck when talented drivers like himself or Bottas end up driving this thing. Alex Albon. His challenge is keeping his seat. Now, this might sound insane, but hear me out. This has gone under the radar, but Albon hasn't actually been performing all that well ever since he got an actually competent teammate. Sorry, Sergeant. So I suspect he might suffer even more when someone like Sainz enters the picture. Speaking of Sainz, his challenge is to complete the revenge arc he has embarked on, which is going pretty damn well considering he's already topped the preseason test. I mean, the Williams dominance, guys, it could bore fans. While we're on the topic of teammate battles, we have Ocon and Behrman, who's absolutely cooked.
Oh no.
If even Fernando Alonso couldn't survive the retardation of Esteban,
I lost the win, I think. Thanks to
our friend.
I don't even know what a rookie is supposed to do in this situation, because if he manages to put any pressure on Ocon, you just know he's getting sent straight into the barrier. But Ocon's challenge is to simply score good points and not cost his team financially whilst they try and build an actually competitive 2026 car. Oh, since I mentioned Alonso, his challenge is maintaining motivation whilst driving a tractor that likes to do Boeing impressions for fun, especially when he looks to his right and sees this walking anti-incest condom ad in the other car, whose challenge is mental. You see what I did there? Like, he's mentally challenged, so his challenge is like, that was so bad, man, I'm sorry. But yeah, his actual challenge is completing the season without doing something so stupid that it gets memed to hell for the next decade. Yuki Tsunoda. His challenge is not offing himself after Red Bull didn't pick him for the gazillionth season in a row, like, just be prepared to eat some exquisite Japanese food after he quits F1 because Liam didn't perform and they still picked Isaac instead, so he just opened a restaurant. Oscar PS3. His challenge is to deadass win the championship, which might sound insane, but looking at how fast the McLaren should be, all he has to do is beat these two cracked drivers, a sloth and Lando Norris, I guess. Alright, now let's speedrun the rookies. Gabriel Bortoleto. As much as I back this guy, I just know we won't even see him unless he's crashing, retiring or getting lapped. Not so much because it's his fault, but what do you expect from a car that's literally called Sauber C45, i.e. Sauber Chicane 45. Isaac Hadja. All he has to do is not start a thermonuclear war with Yuki, because we all know that their personalities are mirror copies of each other in all the wrong ways.
No, man, you can't say P2. You can't say.
These guys are fucking retarded.
I already talked about him, but Ollie Behrman's challenge is beating Ocon. Not like that. Now that might sound too difficult, but I reckon he can pull it off, assuming Ocon doesn't do his thing.
Ordinary stuff, so unusual.
Yeah, so he's got way out of shape, and that's why he's headed towards Alonso.
Okay, mate, you okay? Idiot, Fernando.
Kimi Antonelli. His challenge is to convince Toto that he's worth it, because we all know Toto has the fattest crush on Verstappen, which means Antonelli could very well lose his seat next season. So all he has to do is not crash or do something stupid, score good points, and maybe match Russell here and there, or even beat him. Liam Lawson. All he has to do is not be Perez every race, which is admittedly a very low bar to clear. I mean, just don't crash, don't qualify 18th every race, don't stall during a safety car restart, just basic stuff. But most importantly, not falling into the trying to beat Max Verstappen trap that every previous driver in that seat has fallen into, because it just doesn't end well, does it? Jack Doohan. It's pretty useless to give him a challenge, to be honest, since he's already lost his seat. Dude could win the first 5 races and still get sacked for Colapinto, whose challenge would simply be to continue improving and maybe reduce his crash-prone nature a little bit.